Hello, I'm Anastasia Rogers, and this is my final project for HMD 225. At my most recent employer, the top issue within the company was understaffing and high turnover rates due to high levels of employee dissatisfaction and poor management. The number one problem was that we were always short-staffed in all departments of the restaurant. The good employees who would show up every day ready to work, such as myself, were fed up and stressed out by understaffing issues. At least twice a week, I would have to work in my section completely alone due to understaffing. I worked at the milkshake bar, which was a huge job to take on alone. Some of my work duties included making all milkshake orders for the restaurant, which, by the way, was the main attraction of the whole restaurant. I would also have to fill and clean out 2 custard machines, grab stock from upstairs once I got low, clean freezers and refrigerators, take out all of the trash, and refill all of the milkshake toppings. This created a lot of stress for me because sometimes we would get backed up with tons of orders and I had no one else to help me with them. Occasionally a manager would come by and help, but the helpful manager that we had actually ended up leaving the organization, leaving us with a new manager who had no interest in learning how to run all departments within the restaurant. I would also stay very late at night doing a job that was meant for 2 to 3 people. The biggest problem of all, though, was the fact that no one cared. At the end of the day, most of the managers did not say anything encouraging like, "Good job today." They just expected you to show up and do it all over again the next day. These hard working conditions caused many employees in our section to quit via no call, no show, which caused even more stress for us. At one point, there were only 3 night shakers, including myself. This is very short staffed because when we had a full staff, we would run 3 shakers per shift. At one point, me and the other 2 shakers emailed management saying that we were willing to pick up additional shifts to help each other out. Management then declined because they claimed they could not afford overtime. Shortly after this, 3 shakers became just 2. To solve the understaffing issue, management thought it would be a great idea to just hire 7 new shakers all at once, which turned out to be a nightmare. Only 2 of us trying to train 7 new girls was hectic because by this point, all of the morning shift girls had quit as well, and there were not enough people to train all of these new hires. I would come in at night trying to train 2 new night shakers and a mid, which was too much for me personally. Trying to train this many people was hard for me because I could not pay enough attention to each employee while focusing on getting all job-related tasks completed. Even these 7 new hires started to drop like flies due to poor management. We had 4 managers at the restaurant. The general manager was the most unprofessional of them all. Whenever anyone tried to call off, he would immediately have an attitude because we were already short-staffed. But it seemed like he was trying to punish the only staff members who typically cared enough to even show up to work. I was with the company for 2 years. In that time frame, I only missed work twice. I was with the company for 2 years, and the first time I called out after having perfect attendance for a year and a half. I called the manager and told him my son was sick and that his eye was very swollen. He then proceeded to tell me that this was not a legitimate reason to miss work because if I had someone to watch him before, how does this affect anything? I guess he did not seem to grasp the concept that you cannot take sick children to daycare. After accusing me of lying, I sent him a photo so he could see my son's condition. He apologized, but then proceeded to tell me he still did not think it was a legitimate reason to miss work. I then proceeded to tell him I will be unable to show up at work that day. The next time I missed work was 8 months later when I decided to do a no-call, no-show, and I never went back. A few days prior, my other shaker friend quit as well, and management ignored my request for more help. I love this job so much, but ultimately had to leave because I felt overworked and burnt out like many others at the restaurant. If I was promoted to top-level leadership, the first thing I would do is to build my credibility. I would already have basic knowledge about the restaurant and the hospitality industry, but to further improve my expertise, I would go around the restaurant and observe and learn how to do every job from hose to shaker to busser to bartender and some basic kitchen prep and work and recipes. This would help me to improve my overall knowledge on how the restaurant and all of its departments operate. This knowledge would be useful to help me fill in different spots where we were understaffed in. While helping out in other departments, I will get a chance to interact with different employees and start to build relationships and trust. Once I have built a high level of trust with workers, I will ask them about their biggest work struggles and if they have any suggestions on how we can improve restaurant operations and make their jobs easier. As a top-level manager, I would also like to follow the situational leadership model. I think you need to use different styles of leadership with different employees and in different situations. I felt like my manager only had one very cruel and strict approach when it came to management. Everyone always feared calling off to him because he would ask too many questions and have a mean tone about it. I understand being frustrated with a high level of callouts, but he should not have gone off on me the way he did after my one callout a year and a half into the company. This really upset me because I feel like I was a hard worker, unlike two other employees in my department who called off several times a month. Being given the same treatment as that was very upsetting, and this is when I felt as though I was becoming burned out and unhappy at work. I was also having a lot more pressure and duties put off onto me because I was a more reliable employee, but I still felt like I was being treated as less than. Since I had been with the company for so long, I was used to and comfortable with the lack of management help in my section. We would get new recipes and supplies, and no one knew how to make them. Instead of management helping us figure things out, they just kind of gave us all the ingredients and told us to figure it out. This leadership method was okay for me, but when I came back from my days off, I could see that others had been struggling with the lack of leadership since they were so new to the company. That is why if I was promoted to top-level management, I would use situational leadership to adjust my leadership styles to fit the needs of all my employees. Another thing I would do as a top-level manager would be to work on my emotional intelligence and the emotional intelligence of the other managers at the restaurant. As a manager, you need to be able to regulate your emotions in order to help employees with theirs. I think that management had a hard time regulating their own emotions, which rubbed off onto employees. Employees would express their feelings to management and constantly be turned down or told that their feelings were not valid. This caused anger levels in employees to rise and ultimately caused conflict. One time I was working with an employee who was very stressed out with the lack of help we were receiving at the shake bar. Earlier in the day, we had made an agreement that the last hour she would focus on shakes and I would focus on cleaning up. Well, the last hour, we started getting hit hard, like we typically would, and she got mad and started to curse at me. This angered me, and I got a manager right away. I was also told to send HR a report, but there was no resolve until months later while I was constantly being scheduled alone with this same hostile employee. They did not take my complaint seriously until 4 others complained about her, and they finally terminated her. They used terrible emotional intelligence skills in the scenario. They didn't offer an apology on the employee's behalf or tried not to schedule us together. I felt as though I was not being taken seriously. They did not care that this employee was trying to emotionally abuse me, and they did not properly investigate the issue. Another time where management exhibited terrible emotional intelligence was when 2 girls were crying because they felt overwhelmed. They expressed this to management and asked if a mid-shift could get added for extra help. The manager told her that they could not afford it, and then he told her to clock out and go. She proceeded to say she had not grabbed stock yet before shift change. He told her to clock out and that he would have the other employee grab stock. The stock was very heavy, and he left it for the woman who was 6 months pregnant to grab. This was poor emotional intelligence on his part because he did not care about the employee who was crying and overwhelmed. Instead, he made her cry more by telling her to just clock out and leave, which made her feel like her feelings were not valid. It also caused a lot of stress for the heavily pregnant worker who now had to finish the shift alone and grab stock herself. I think that if I was promoted to top-level management, I could solve the issue of understaffing and high turnover rates by increasing my credibility and helping employees out where there is understaffing issues and building relationships with them so that they can feel more comfortable expressing their problems to me so that I can create a better working environment for them. I can also solve the understaffing and high turnover issue by using the situational leadership model. I will give more help to employees who are struggling and give more freedom to those who feel confident in the position. I will also be stricter on employees who constantly call out or are tardy often, while being less strict to employees who I know are reliable and may just be having an off day. Lastly, I will use emotional intelligence to listen to employees and emphasize with them. I can use emotional intelligence to help employees overcome challenges and help to diffuse conflicts amongst employees when they arise. I think these principles align well with my desired leadership style, which is coaching. I would love to collaborate with my employees as well as offer them constant support, guidance, and reassurance. Already at the jobs I have had, I tried to motivate my employees and push them to achieve their full potential. I think that a coaching approach to leadership would have been a great at my previous job because most employees felt overwhelmed and they were struggling emotionally. It would have made our days better just to be reassured that we were doing a good job and that we were meaningful to the company. I think this coaching approach to management would make me fall into the cheerleader category on the Dimensions Matrix. As a top level manager, it would be important for me to get along with my employees in order to build a better working environment.